The quiet agony of betrayal. The deepest pain isn't being betrayed, it's the slow, quiet agony of realizing you've been a silent witness to your own humiliation. It's the moment you understand that her newfound distance isn't from stress or routine, but because her body and spirit have found intimacy elsewhere. Women rarely confess, but they always reveal. When you miss the signals, you become the unwilling accomplice to your own heartbreak. I am about to reveal 8 signs that give away a woman who has been unfaithful. These are the red flags most men ignore until it's far too late. The final sign is the undeniable nail in the coffin, the one she can't hide, no matter how hard she tries. Before we get to the signs, please subscribe and hit like. Let me know in the comments what city you're watching from, as betrayal speaks the same language no matter where you live. 1. The cold silence of her body. There's a language the body speaks that words can never replicate. When you've been with a woman for a while, you know the warmth of her touch and the way her body responds to yours. You also recognize when that connection goes dead. This is one of the hardest signs to face because it doesn't scream, it whispers. You lean in to kiss her, and she suddenly turns her face. A gentle touch on her shoulder in bed is met with a stiffening rather than a softening. She may say she's tired, but her body isn't heavy with exhaustion, it's heavy with indifference. The brutal truth is that when a woman has been fulfilled by another, she doesn't come back to you hungry, she comes back satisfied. And that satisfaction leaves no room for you. This feeling is like trying to light a fire that has already burned itself out. No matter how many matches you strike, the wood remains cold. The biggest mistake men make here is denial. You tell yourself it's just stress or the natural progression of a long-term relationship. But attraction doesn't simply die of old age, it dies when it moves to another source. If she used to pull you close but now rolls away, that isn't routine, it's a signal. Don't beg or push for her affection. Instead, pull back. Observe whether the distance between you shrinks on its own or if it widens even further. A woman who still desires you will eventually close that gap. One who has given herself to another will let the silence deepen. Your job is not to force a response, but to recognize when it is no longer there. This knowledge is painful, but also liberating. Once you stop lying to yourself, you stop trying to reignite a flame that someone else has already put out. And if her body has gone silent, don't think the truth will hide. When her skin stops speaking, her habits will start screaming. 2. The cleansing ritual. A woman who has been intimate with another man won't walk through your door smelling of betrayal. Instead, she'll smell too fresh, almost unnaturally so. This is a telltale sign of the erasing ritual. She may have a new perfume that wasn't there before, have taken a longer than usual shower, or changed her clothes for no obvious reason. This is a subconscious attempt to cleanse not just her body, but her conscience as well. Most men miss this because they want to. You'll convince yourself she's just being fresh or trying out a new scent. You are gaslighting yourself because you don't want to face the possibility that she's removing evidence. A woman knows her body tells stories. Skin holds onto smells, hair carries traces, and clothes remember contact. So she scrubs and she sprays, all to hide the evidence. The irony is that the more she tries to erase, the louder it becomes. That sudden obsession with hygiene isn't a random act, it's a pattern. This doesn't mean every long shower is a sign of betrayal. The key is change. If she never cared about rushing to the bathroom after work but suddenly does, or if she's suddenly guarding her laundry, pay attention. Psychology is about noticing shifts from the norm. So, what should you do? Don't make excuses for her. Don't laugh it off. Just observe and connect the dots. If this behavior becomes a pattern, especially when paired with a too perfect smile, you know what's going on. The mistake men make is ignoring their intuition. You smell the perfume and call it fragrance instead of deception. This is how you become an accomplice to your own replacement. But hygiene is just the surface. Beneath it, her emotions are at war, and guilt has a way of spilling out sideways. The cleansing ritual and its meaning. The crucial thing to understand is not a single action, but change. If she never cared about rushing to the bathroom after work but suddenly does, or if she's suddenly secretive about her laundry, you need to pay attention. Psychology is about observing shifts, noticing what no longer fits the familiar rhythm of your life together. Your first impulse might be to excuse this behavior. Don't laugh it off or tell yourself, at least she's taking care of herself. Instead, observe and connect the dots. If this ritual is repeated and is always followed by an overly perfect smile, you know what's really going on. The mistake men make is ignoring their gut feeling and the signals from their senses. You smell the perfume but call it fragrance instead of deception. You notice her overcleanliness but label it personal growth. This is how you become an accomplice to your own replacement. The solution is simple: awareness. When this pattern emerges, you don't confront her with rage. You acknowledge it with clarity. You don't need to accuse, you just need to see. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that clarity will change how you approach the situation. But remember, her hygiene is only the surface. The deeper game is about her emotions, because when her body is clean, she still has to deal with the weight of her guilt. And guilt has a way of spilling out sideways. The blame game, unjustified irritation. When a woman's guilt becomes too heavy to carry, she doesn't confess it, she projects it onto you. Suddenly, you're the problem. You walk through the door and are met with a complaint: you loaded the dishwasher wrong, you're too quiet, you're too talkative. This irritation isn't random, it's a strategy. The psychology behind this is clear: if she can paint you as the villain, she doesn't have to feel like the betrayer. In her rewritten script, she didn't step out of the relationship because she wanted to, she did it because you were inattentive or boring. This is projection at its sharpest. She can't handle her internal conflict, so she pushes it onto you. The trap most men fall into is defending themselves. You argue, thinking logic will win, but you can't outlogic guilt. The more you defend, the more she is able to paint you as the bad guy. Before you know it, you're walking on eggshells in your own home. Here's the shift: stop playing defense. You don't need to win the argument, you need to win back your dignity. The next time she snaps at you over something ridiculous, don't take the bait. Don't beg or debate. Look her in the eye and say calmly, you don't need to fight to justify what you've already decided. Then, step back. This isn't weakness, it's strength. You're showing that you see the tactic and won't participate in her game. When you refuse to play the role she wrote for you, her script collapses. The weight of her guilt now sits where it belongs, with her, and you've just reclaimed your emotional ground. Some men ask if silence is a sign of weakness. No. Weakness is allowing someone to manipulate you into chaos. Strength is control. You're not ignoring the issue, you're refusing to be manipulated by it. But projection isn't the final mask. The truth can also appear on a different battlefield, one no excuse can cover: her own body. The body doesn't lie. A woman can rehearse her excuses, mask her moods, and polish her story until it sounds convincing. But there is one place she can't control: her body. This is where most men betray themselves, not because they can't see, but because they refuse to look. You know her rhythms, her warmth, and her reactions. That's why when something changes, you feel it, even if you don't want to admit it. Maybe she feels unusually tense or unusually relaxed. Perhaps her responsiveness has shifted, either exaggerated or strangely absent. This change is never random. The cruel truth is you don't need to be a doctor to notice this, you need to be honest. Men often explain it away as hormones or stress, and while those things can be a factor, a sudden, unexplainable shift in the pattern demands your attention. Ignoring what your senses have already picked up is the fastest way to humiliate yourself. The mistake is thinking that by pretending everything is fine, you're saving the relationship. You're not, you're just postponing the inevitable collapse. A body that has been with another man carries an imprint that, while not always visible, is always felt. So, what do? First, stop running from your intuition. If something feels off, don't shove it down. Let yourself register it. Second, stop overcompensating. Men often respond to distance by trying harder, giving more affection, more patience, and more effort in bed, as if their giving will fix what has already been taken. It won't. You don't win back desire by throwing effort at it, you win by recognizing when it's gone. Men often try to fix this by giving more affection, more patience, more effort in bed. This is a mistake. You can't win back desire by throwing effort at it, you can only win by recognizing when it's gone. A practical step is to scale back and observe. If intimacy feels off, don't accuse or interrogate. Just notice the change. That awareness is your shield, preventing you from investing more into someone who is already detached. The truth is, if you ignore your senses, you aren't being strong, you're being scared. Strength is facing what you already know, even when it burns. However, guilt doesn't always show up as coldness. Sometimes, to cover the cracks, a woman goes in the opposite direction. She becomes overly warm, affectionate, and tender in a way that feels too good to be true. And that's exactly what it is. 5. The theater of guilt, excessive affection. Not every betrayal looks cold. Sometimes it enters the room wrapped in kisses and a sudden wave of sweetness. If you aren't paying attention, you'll mistake this guilt for love. This is one of the cruelest tricks because it preys directly on your hope. You felt her slipping away, sensed the silence, and then suddenly she's holding your hand, kissing your cheek, and whispering "I love you" with watery eyes. You want to believe it's real. You think she's coming back, but she isn't. She's trying to come back to herself. That affection isn't for you, it's for her conscience. After crossing the line, many women pull closer, not because they've rediscovered their desire, but because they need to quiet the guilt. Touching you, doing favors for you, it's all part of an act to keep her from drowning in self-disgust. The mistake men make is treating this affection like a second chance. You drop your guard and breathe a sigh of relief, losing all your leverage. You become a comfort toy, a safe space she clings to while her passion burns somewhere else. You end up holding her guilt, not her love. The move is to test the source. Ask yourself, does this affection come with consistency or only in waves after unexplained absences? Does she touch you with desire or with obligation? Does it feel genuine or rehearsed? These questions will cut through the fog. Don't reward guilty affection. You don't need hugs born from betrayal. What you need is honesty, even if it's cold. The strongest thing you can say is, "I'd rather have your silence than your guilty embrace." That statement isn't for her, it's for you. It's your way of reclaiming self-respect in the face of false tenderness. Real connection doesn't require a performance. If her affection feels like an apology instead of desire, you already know the difference. And once you know, you can never go back to pretending. If you keep accepting her guilty embrace, the next stage is worse. She won't just touch you without desire, she'll be with you physically while her mind drifts miles away. 6. Emotional absence in intimacy. There is a profound difference between a body next to you and a soul with you. This is where betrayal cuts the deepest, not because of what she does, but because of what she withholds. She gives you her body, but she no longer gives you herself. You're in bed, and on the surface, everything looks normal. She touches you, moves with you, and even makes sounds. But something is missing. Her eyes are empty. Her energy doesn't sync with yours. You can feel she's somewhere else, replaying a memory that doesn't involve you. That's not intimacy, it's a performance. The brutal truth is that a woman who is emotionally absent during intimacy is already gone. You're not making love, you're playing a role in her cover-up. Men who ignore this always tell themselves the same comforting lie: she's just tired or it's stress. But deep down, you know the difference. Tiredness still allows presence. Stress still allows connection. This absence is a void. The mistake most men make is pushing harder. You think, if I try more, she'll come back. But the more you push, the further she drifts because her fire isn't missing, it's burning somewhere else. Every extra ounce of effort you give just teaches her one thing: she doesn't need to give anything back. The solution is to stop chasing ghosts. Respect yourself enough to notice when her soul isn't with you. Instead of chasing her body, a practical step is to step into clarity. If intimacy feels wrong, scale back and observe. Don't accuse or interrogate, just notice how consistent the change is. This awareness is your shield, preventing you from investing more into someone who is already detached. The deeper truth is, if you ignore your senses, you're not being strong, you're being scared. Strength isn't denial, strength is facing what you already know, even when it burns. If you allow this humiliation to settle, the next sign will expose it in plain daylight. She won't just leave you emotionally absent in bed, she'll start leaving you physically absent in time. 7. The late returns, empty excuses. When love is real, time bends to make room for it. A woman who still desires you will find her way back to you, even on the busiest days. But when her fire is gone, the clock turns against you. She's late again and again, and every excuse feels thinner than the last. At first, you want to believe her: work ran long, her phone died, a friend needed her. But when messy turns into a pattern, when lateness becomes routine, it's not about life, it's about priority. And you are no longer at the top of the list. The psychology here is that lateness is more than just missing time, it's a test. She's measuring how much you will tolerate. She wants to see if you will question it or if you'll keep accepting less while hoping for more. Every time you let it slide, you train her that your dignity is negotiable. The trap most men fall into is silence. You see the inconsistency and feel the sting, but you swallow it, telling yourself you'll sound insecure if you say something. But insecurity isn't asking for respect. Insecurity is pretending you don't notice. So, call it what it is. Not with yelling or begging, but with boundaries. The next time she comes in late with a flimsy story, don't interrogate. Simply look at her and state, "You weren't here, and that tells me everything I need to know." That silence is more powerful than any argument because it places the responsibility back on her choices. A woman who still chooses you will always come home. If she no longer returns to you, it's because she's already returning to someone else. But lateness is only half the story, because even when she tries to cover it, her own words will betray her. 8. The collapse of her story. Stories are fragile things. They can be rehearsed and polished, but the moment pressure builds, cracks appear. When a woman has crossed the line, her story eventually collapses under its own contradictions. You've seen it before. She comes home late, words tumbling out too fast, details changing with each retelling. You notice the gaps, the mismatched timelines, and the way her eyes no longer hold your gaze. They dart and flicker with unease. That's not stress, that's deception struggling to keep its balance. The mistake men make is demanding airtight evidence, a smoking gun. But the truth doesn't always come with a receipt. It comes in inconsistencies and the way her story unravels the more you listen. The harder she tries to control the narrative, the more obvious it becomes that she's losing control. So, what's the move? Stop playing detective. You don't need to gather evidence for a courtroom trial. You already have the signals, the changes, and the patterns. When her story collapses, you don't argue with it. You simply decide, "I don't believe you, and I don't need to anymore." That's not an accusation, it's a boundary. This empowering shift reclaims your power. You stop being the man chasing clarity from someone who thrives on confusion and become the man who sets a simple line, respect or nothing. Practice quiet recognition. The next time her story starts wobbling, don't fill the silence with questions. Let it fall. Don't rescue her from the weight of her own contradictions. That silence is your ally. It exposes what words are trying to hide. You don't need to scream cheater to regain your dignity. All you need is clarity and the courage to act on it. Conclusion. You have just learned the 8 signs of betrayal. This isn't about turning you into a paranoid detective. It's about opening your eyes so you stop betraying yourself. The harshest betrayal isn't what she does in secret, it's what you allow yourself to ignore in plain sight. The goal here is to reclaim your dignity, your boundaries, and your power as a man who refuses to settle for less than he deserves. These signs are not just clues of infidelity, they are warnings. Warnings that something is off and needs to be addressed, and that ignoring it will only cost you more of your self-respect. It's also important to remember that not every sign means betrayal is guaranteed. Sometimes distance comes from stress or poor communication. That's why your job isn't to accuse, it's to test, to observe, and to confront the reality directly. If there's room to repair, you have the conversation and fight for the connection. But if the evidence stacks up, and every sign confirms what your gut already knows, then the most masculine thing you can do is walk away with your dignity intact. Because love is never worth trading your self-respect. My challenge to you is this: pick one situation in your life where you've ignored your instincts. Face it. Decide whether it's a problem you can solve or the end of the line. The decision belongs to you, not to her lies, not to your fears.